Hey there, guys. It's Ramsey, your girl behind Homegirl Cookies. And I am in the process of setting up a new cookie room, and I became absolutely obsessed with the idea of repurposing a white pegboard to hold a lot of my baking supplies, cookie cutters, you name it. So I thought I would make a quick tutorial to show you just how easy and inexpensive it is to just jazz up your pegboards if you are wanting to go that route for some storage. First, you are going to need some pegboard, and I got mine in a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet from Home Depot. I think it was like 25 bucks, and they can cut it to size for you. So just measure the space you want to put the pegboard on, and you can have it cut to size. Next, you're gonna take a little bit of Mod Podge. I just got the matte finish. I don't think it really matters what finish you get. And a roller brush. As you can see here, I did not use a regular paintbrush because if you use a regular paintbrush to apply the Mod Podge onto your pegboard, it's going to kind of pull inside those holes a little bit too much. So the roller brush is the way to go. And I'm using a fancy paper plate, as you can see here, to hold my Mod Podge instead of a paint well, but it worked for me, so it's all good. So you're just gonna apply a generous coat of the Mod Podge adhesive to the pegboard, and make sure you get close up to the edges, all around the 4 corners. And you know, like I said, it needs to be a generous coat. I think I went over it maybe twice and used about a half a bottle of Mod Podge, maybe even less. Once you're done applying the Mod Podge to the pegboard, you're gonna wanna let it sit and fully dry, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. Obviously, it depends on how big your project is. I wanna say I let this sit close to 2 hours to completely dry. So for a project like this, you can use so many different types of papers, but I found a roll of wrapping paper that was a cute pattern and it matched the color scheme I was going for in my cookie room. So this is the pattern that I chose to repurpose my pegboard. What you'll need to apply the wrapping paper to the pegboard is the wrapping paper itself, obviously, scissors, some parchment paper, and a hot iron that does not have any water in it so it doesn't produce any steam. You'll want to unroll your wrapping paper or arrange whatever paper you're using on your pegboard. And the beauty of using this method is that the Mod Podge underneath is already dry, so you don't have to worry about it sticking and pulling in weird areas, that sort of thing. You can just lay it straight and then cut it at the end of the roll as needed for your length. It's so nice doing it this way, the ironing method, so that you don't have to worry about messing with wet Mod Podge. Once you have your paper arranged the way that you want to, you are going to first lay a piece of parchment paper down first. It's so important that you don't skip that step or forget to do it, because if you put the iron directly on your wrapping paper, it can scorch it. So make sure you have a parchment paper over your wrapping paper between the iron and the paper, protecting it. So as you see me here, I am just laying the parchment paper down and just ironing that wrapping paper onto the pegboard. And what's happening underneath is the iron, which I have set on not the hottest setting, but probably next to the hottest setting on cotton, in between cotton and linen, I would say, is what the setting is for that iron. But you're just gonna easily go back and forth like I'm doing right here. But what's happening underneath is it's heating up that Mod Podge adhesive, and it's making the wrapping paper adhere to the pegboard, and it comes out pretty smooth. You might have a couple of bubbles here and there, but I found that once you iron on the wrapping paper and you lift up the parchment paper and just kind of look over your progress, if you see any bubbles, you can lay that parchment paper back down over the bubble and just kind of reheat it and then smooth it out with your finger. You'll see me do that a couple times towards the end. But just make sure you don't have to just let the iron sit down on top of the pegboard. You can move it back and forth, but I would say move it in slower strokes rather than fast strokes, just to make sure you get every inch of that project. And make sure when you're ironing the edges that you kind of fold down the iron over the edge, if that makes sense, just to make sure you're creasing over the edge to make sure those edges stick. And you probably noticed we have a little visitor in the background now. He's just come in to check on Mom's project progress. And once you've ironed over the entire project, you might want to go back and go around maybe the edges of, one more time and just kind of check for any bubbled up areas, that sort of thing, and try and iron them out the best that you can. That's what I'm doing here. It's really important that the edges are really stuck so that, the edges don't peel up and that sort of thing. Once you finish out the ironing, you can immediately go around the edges and just cut off the excess. Don't cut up or cut straight up to the board edge yet. You're going to see me shave off the final pieces of that, but just get close to the edge. But you don't want to trim up to the edge just yet. Leave a little bit of excess. We're going to sand that part off here in just a second. And this is just a easy, cheap little piece of sandpaper that I had in my craft bin that I pulled out. What you're gonna do is push it straight up to the edge like I'm doing here and kind of cup it with your hands and push in straight up to the edge with a couple of your fingers and just run that sandpaper up and down right to that edge. And you're gonna see how easy this is, guys. It just peels right off and creates the most beautiful crisp edge straight up to the pegboard. See how easy that is? It just literally just like melts off. Or peels off, I should say. But you just sand down all four edges just like this. It is so incredibly easy. Just put a little pressure with some of your fingers on the actual edge, go up and down, and it comes right off. That sanding literally took maybe 5 minutes. See how crisp that edge is? It's so smooth. The wrapping paper is 100% stuck on that pegboard. It is not coming off. It is good to go. Now comes probably the most tedious part. And when I say tedious, I mean time consuming. It's really not hard at all. You literally take a mechanical pencil and just punch out all of those holes. You can easily see after ironing on that paper where the hole indentions are. You don't have to search for them at all. And they poke through so easily with that mechanical pencil. Just poke it through. Make sure the lead isn't showing on your mechanical pencil, by the way. But just poke it through and then do like a little circular motion to just kind of fold back the paper inside the hole to the hole edges. And you just kind of go to town. You might want to put on some music or a podcast in the background because this does take some time. Here's a close-up of it right here of what it looks like. But it does take some time, but it's super easy and oddly satisfying. Is that kind of weird to say? But here is the final project. After you get all the holes punched, you can do your little happy dance because it's done. That's all you have to do. It's so simple to make this pegboard. And when you're ready to hang this on the wall, remember it has to sit off the wall about an inch or so that the hooks on the front will go through the holes. And I just used 1x2 furring strips I got at Home Depot. I cut them down to the length of my board, which was 6 feet. And then my husband drilled them into studs in our wall just short of 2 feet, which is the width of the board. Just ignore those two black rod things, though that's for my shelf. That has nothing to do with this. And then we just screwed the actual pegboard into the furring strips. And I got to be so creative, and it was so fun to arrange all of the doodads on my pegboard. So I decided to make a smaller second one to hold all of my cookie cutters. And I decided to frame this one. I just used extra furring strips that I stained and attached it with wood glue and tiny wood nails. So if you're interested in the pegboard storage system for whatever you've got going on, just know how easy and simple it is to repurpose it and jazz it up just a little bit. I am going to try and add all of the supplies that I used into the description below, just so that you can have kind of a compiled list somewhere. So hopefully that helps. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks, guys.